You know that feeling, right, when you're standing under a quiet night sky, just looking up at all those stars, and these huge questions start bubbling up from somewhere deep inside? Why am I even here? Who made all of this? Well, this explainer is all about one person's account of that exact search. And it's not really a story about religion, not in the way we usually think about it. It's a search for meaning. It's about wanting a kind of certainty that you feel in your heart even before your mind can catch up. So let's walk that path together.
And this quote, right from the get-go, it just hits the nail on the head. It sets the whole tone. This isn't about winning an argument or a debate. No, this is about a deeply personal quest, a search for something real, something that clicks in your mind and in your soul. It's about finding a truth that feels, well, that feels like coming home.
Okay, so where does a journey like this even start? For the person whose story we're following, it wasn't really a choice. It was more like this persistent internal voice, a question that just wouldn't go away no matter how hard he tried to ignore it and just, live a normal life.
And that was the real struggle at first. I mean, he tried. He tried to just eat, laugh, sleep, be like everyone else. But that one big question, does God exist? It would just keep coming back, almost haunting him in those quiet moments. When you're looking at yourself in the mirror or standing at a funeral or just in that total silence right before you fall asleep. It was like the question was stamped onto his very soul.
Eventually, he found a name for this inner voice, Al-Fitra. Think of it like a natural, built-in compass we all have. It's that part of you that just senses there's something more out there. It's that feeling you get, even when you're totally alone, that you're being seen. It's that gut feeling of right and wrong. It's the pure instinct that makes a little kid just stare up at the sky in absolute wonder.
All right, so after really acknowledging this inner feeling, the journey shifted gears. It moved from the heart to the head. It became a time for rational, logical investigation. He decided, okay, I'm going to use the world around me as my evidence to tackle that first massive question.
And this was the question that drove everything. He looked at the whole universe, at life itself, even at his own body, and asked a really simple but profound, logical question. Could all of this incredible, intricate order, really, truly be the result of just a blind, random accident?
So first, he zoomed way, way in, down to the microscopic level, and what he saw was mind-blowing. A single living cell. I mean, the systems inside it are more complex, more organized, and way more efficient than an entire bustling city. To say that just happened by chance, it just didn't feel like a good enough answer.
Okay, so then he did the opposite. He zoomed way, way out to the cosmic scale. Looking through a telescope, he saw these massive galaxies spinning and moving through space with this unbelievable precision and order. It was like they were all following a single invisible command. The universe didn't look like chaos at all. It looked like a perfectly orchestrated symphony.
And finally, he brought the investigation right back home, to himself. The evidence wasn't just out there in space or under a microscope. It was right inside him. I mean, think about it. His own heart just beating away rhythmically without him ever having to think about it. That became its own kind of personal proof. A constant, quiet drumbeat asking, who's the one organizing all this?
So after all of this, his mind was pointing pretty clearly toward a creator. But that, of course, brought up a whole new puzzle. If the evidence seems so strong, so overwhelming to him, why do so many people not believe? He really wanted to understand the atheist perspective and to do it with genuine sincerity.
And as he reflected on it, he came to a conclusion, or at least a perspective, that for many people, atheism isn't just a cold, logical deduction. It's more like a wound. Maybe a wound from pain and suffering that never got an answer. Or, on the other hand, maybe a kind of intellectual pride, thinking that science has all the answers. But here's the thing. Science is brilliant at explaining how things work, but it can't really touch the question of why they exist at all.
So the journey had reached a major milestone, belief in a creator. But you know how it is. Answering one big question just unlocks the next even bigger one. And this one was critical. If there is a God, who is he? I mean, with all the different religions and paths out there, how could anyone possibly figure out which one is the true one?
Well, his logic followed a pretty clear track. He looked around and saw that the whole universe, from the tiniest atom to the biggest galaxy, seems to operate under one unified set of laws. To him, all that harmony pointed to one single unified lawmaker. The idea of a bunch of different gods all with their own competing plans, It just didn't seem to fit with the cohesive reality he was seeing.
So as he started exploring different faiths, he noticed a common theme. Many of them described God in very human-like ways. But then he came across a description of God in Islam, and this one line, it just resonated on a whole different level. It described a perfect being who is completely unlike anything in creation, something beyond our human ability to picture, but at the same time completely aware of everything, hearing and seeing all. It was a different kind of concept entirely.
Next, he looked at the idea of forgiveness. Now, he saw this incredible love in the Christian story of redemption for sure, but there was this one question he just couldn't get past. Does a perfect, all-powerful God really need to suffer in order to forgive? Then he looked at the model in Islam and found something totally different. Forgiveness was direct. It was like an open door, straight from you to God. No go-between needed, no sacrifice, just a sincere heart turning back.
Another huge piece of the puzzle for him was the sacred texts themselves. He learned that the Gospels had been translated and, well, altered over many centuries. But when he looked at the Quran, he found something he considered unique. It was preserved word for word in its original language and hadn't changed in over 1,400 years. That was a pretty big deal.
And this is really the climax of the whole journey. Okay, so he'd found a path that made sense to his mind. But belief is one thing, and certainty is another. That deep, unshakable conviction. In Arabic, they call it yaqeen. And what he discovered is that this isn't some gift that just falls out of the sky. It's a destination you reach by following a clear 3-step path.
And here's what that path looks like. Step 1 is the mind. That's where you see the evidence, the logic, the signs in the universe. But, logic by itself can be pretty cold. So step 2 is the heart. That's where the heart opens up and receives that truth, like a kind of light, turning all that information into a real connection. And finally, step 3 is experience. These are those really personal moments, maybe in prayer, maybe in a moment of hardship, where you feel a response, a comfort, a presence that just confirms deep down that you are not alone.
So I guess the big takeaway here is this. True certainty isn't some random lightning strike. It's not a miracle that just lands on you out of nowhere. No, according to this journey, it's the natural result you get when you go on an honest, sincere search, one that uses your mind, your heart, and your own life experiences.
And this is the final transformation. This is what concludes the search. The question itself, it just dissolved. It wasn't an intellectual puzzle he needed to solve anymore. He found the answer, not in some killer final argument, but in this feeling of peace that would just wash over his heart for no obvious reason. He wasn't just thinking the answer anymore, he had started to feel it. And in the end, the author doesn't finish with some grand declaration. He ends with a really gentle, open-ended question. He lays out his whole story, his logic, his feelings, and then he kind of just hands it over to us, the listener. He presents his journey as one possible path and then leaves us with a thought to ponder. This was my journey. Could it be the beginning of yours?